viral rumor that shocked the NBA world. LeBron James becoming a grandfather while still playing in the NBA sounded too wild to ignore, and that is exactly why the internet lost its mind. One post, one photo, one caption. That was all it took for millions of fans to believe Bronny James was suddenly at the center of a life-changing story. The rumor claimed that Bronny and his girlfriend were expecting a baby, turning LeBron's already historic father-son NBA journey into something even more unbelievable. A grandfather still chasing championships? 3 generations of the James family entering the basketball conversation at once? For social media, it was the perfect storm. But there was one problem. The story was not what people thought it was. Around June 20th and 21st of 2026, parody and clickbait accounts on X began pushing a photo of a young man standing beside a woman, with captions suggesting LeBron was about to become a grandpa. Some posts were vague, others were bold, but all of them were designed for one thing: to make people stop scrolling before they stop thinking. And it worked. Within hours, the rumor spread across X, Instagram, Facebook, and sports gossip pages. Search bars filled with Bronny's name. Fans started joking, critics started arguing, and before the truth had a chance to catch up, the internet had already built an entire story around a photo that did not even show Bronny James. That is where this gets dangerous. Because this was not just a harmless meme, this was a stranger's real family moment being taken, stripped of context, and attached to one of the most famous last names in sports. The man in the photo was not Bronny. The woman was not Parker. The pregnancy announcement was real, but it belonged to someone else. So why did so many people believe it? Because Bronny James is not just another young player. He is LeBron's son. Every step he takes becomes a headline. Every mistake becomes a debate. Every personal rumor becomes national NBA content. And this fake baby rumor was never really just about a baby. It was about fame, pressure, family, nepotism, and the impossible weight of being born into the James legacy. Before we go deeper, tell us where you are watching from. If you believe the rumor at first, comment 1. If you knew it was fake, comment 2. And if you follow NBA drama, make sure to subscribe, because this story is only getting crazier. The photo that fooled millions. The entire rumor was built on one dangerous trick. People thought they were looking at Bronny James, but they were not. The photo that exploded across social media showed a young man standing beside a woman. And because he had a similar look to Bronny, the internet did what it always does when a famous name is involved. It skipped the facts and ran straight to the headline. The real man in the picture was Maddox Sequeira, a college football linebacker. The woman beside him was his wife, Carson Sequeira. Their pregnancy announcement was real. Their happiness was real, but the Bronny connection was completely false. That is what made the rumor so reckless. Someone took a private life moment from a couple outside the NBA world and attached it to the James family for clicks. No proof, no reporting, no confirmation, just a photo, a caption, and the power of LeBron's last name. And because Bronny lives under one of the brightest spotlights in sports, the lie moved faster than the truth could breathe. Fans shared it, meme pages reposted it, comment sections exploded. Some people laughed, some people believed it, some people turned it into another reason to attack Bronny. But the real story was not a baby. The real story was how easily the internet can rewrite someone's life in public. This is why the Bronny rumor mattered. Not because it was true, but because millions were ready to believe it before asking one simple question: where did this actually come from? Why Bronny became the perfect target? Bronny James was never going to have a normal NBA life. From the moment he became a serious basketball prospect, he was not judged like other young players. He was judged as LeBron's son. Every highlight was exaggerated. Every mistake was magnified. Every rumor became bigger because his last name carried decades of NBA history. That is why the fake pregnancy story spread so fast. Bronny already had a real relationship that fans knew about. He and Parker had been connected publicly. They had been seen together. They had posted moments online. Their families were known. So when a false story appeared, it did not feel impossible to casual fans. It felt close enough to be believable. And that is the secret weapon of viral misinformation. It does not need to be completely convincing. It only needs to feel possible for 3 seconds. That is all the internet needed. But there was never any real announcement from Bronny. No statement from Parker. No confirmation from either family. No credible reporting. No evidence of marriage, engagement, or pregnancy. Just noise. Still, the rumor worked because people were not really reacting to Bronny's private life. They were reacting to the idea of LeBron becoming a grandfather while still playing in the NBA. That image was too dramatic, too historic, too strange for fans to ignore. A grandfather chasing another ring, a son trying to prove himself, a family already accused of receiving special treatment. The fake rumor did not create the drama. It simply poured gasoline on a fire that was already burning. The rumor became something bigger. Once people realized the baby rumor was fake, the story should have ended. But it did not. Instead, it turned into something much larger and much more personal. the conversation shifted from, is Bronny having a baby? To, why does every Bronny story become national news? And that question led straight into the biggest debate surrounding him. Did he earn his place in the NBA? That is where the mood changed. Bronny was selected by the Los Angeles Lakers with the 55th pick in the 2024 NBA draft. For most players, that pick would barely get national attention. Late second-round picks usually fight for roster spots in silence. They go to Summer League, the G League, training camp, and maybe disappear before casual fans ever learn their names. But Bronny was different. The cameras followed him immediately. Debate shows opened with him. Fans argued about him every night. A player drafted near the end of the second round became one of the most discussed rookies in basketball, not because of his stats, because of his father. That is when the word nepotism stuck to Bronny like a shadow. Critics said he was there because LeBron wanted to play with his son. Supporters said he had talent, potential, and a right to develop like any other young player. The fake baby rumor faded, but the real question remained. Can Bronny ever be judged as himself? The nepotism stormed. The criticism around Bronny did not stay quiet. It became one of the loudest debates in NBA media. Stephen A. Smith said what many critics were thinking: Bronny was in the NBA because of his dad. That sentence became a headline by itself. It was sharp, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. Then came the numbers. Bronny's early production was limited, his minutes were low, his scoring was small. For critics, that proved the Lakers were protecting a storyline instead of developing a player. For supporters, it proved the opposite. He was a young, second-round pick who needed time, patience, and space. But Bronny did not get space. He got a microscope. Every minute he played became a debate. Every shot he missed became evidence. Every time he sat on the bench, people wondered whether the Lakers were hiding him or managing the optics. No matter what happened, the conversation always returned to the same question: was this earned or was this given? Kendrick Perkins added another layer by saying the pressure did not start in the NBA. It followed Bronny from high school, through recruiting, through USC, and into the draft. In his view, the issue was not Bronny's character. It was the platform built around him before his game had enough time to speak for itself. And that is what made the storm so brutal. Most young players are allowed to grow in the shadows. They miss shots, they make mistakes, they spend time in the G League, they learn professional speed away from national television, but Bronny's development became public property. A simple missed jumper was not just a missed jumper. It became proof for one side and ammunition for the other. The internet turned him into a symbol. To some fans, he represented privilege. To others, he represented a father trying to share a once-in-a-lifetime moment with his son. To many neutral fans, he was just a teenager pushed into a debate much bigger than his actual role on the team. That is the cruel part. Bronny became the face of an argument he never started. LeBron had the dream. The Lakers made the pick. The media built the storm. But Bronny had to stand in the middle of it and prove he belonged while millions watched every step. And once that label gets attached to a young player, it is almost impossible to shake. If he plays badly, critics say they were right. If he plays well, they say the attention helped him. If he stays quiet, people call him protected. If he speaks, people call him defensive. That is not normal pressure. That is the weight of the James name. LeBron's line in the sand. LeBron James has been criticized for almost everything in his career. But when the conversation turns toward his family, his tone changes. To LeBron, Bronny is not a debate topic. He is his son. And that is why the criticism hit differently. Basketball questions are one thing. Attacks on family are another. LeBron has made it clear that people can question performance, minutes, development, and basketball decisions, but he does not accept people throwing stones at his family. That line matters because it shows the emotional center of this entire story. For fans, this is content. For LeBron, this is blood. He watched Bronny grow up with impossible expectations. He watched people question whether his son had earned honors in high school. He watched critics tear apart his USC season. He watched the same people who demanded proof also refuse to give him time to grow. And then came the fake pregnancy rumor. To outsiders, it was just another viral joke. To the James family, it was another reminder that even their private lives can be twisted into entertainment. That is why LeBron protects the circle so aggressively. He knows what he built. He knows what his name brings. He also knows that fame can become a weapon when people stop seeing the person underneath the headline. But this is where the situation becomes complicated. Because LeBron's love is real, but the influence is real too. When the most powerful player of his generation says he wants to share the court with his son, teams hear it. Executives hear it. Agents hear it. The league hears it. That does not mean Bronny did nothing to earn his opportunity. But it does mean the opportunity came wrapped in a story bigger than basketball. And that is why people argue. Some fans see a father using his final NBA years to create a beautiful family moment. Others see a superstar's power bending a franchise decision. Both reactions exist because both emotions are present in the story: love and influence. LeBron has always tried to control the narrative around his career, but controlling the narrative around your child is much harder. Bronny is not just part of LeBron's legacy. He is his own person, trying to become his own player, under a spotlight he did not choose. That may be the hardest lesson for LeBron. Protecting Bronny cannot only mean fighting critics. It also has to mean giving Bronny enough room to fail, grow, and succeed, without every step being framed as his father's decision. Bronny may have advantages most young players never get, but he also carries pressure most young players could never survive. And LeBron knows that better than anyone. The moment that changed everything, before the NBA debate, before the Lakers pick, before the father-son history, there was a moment that made basketball feel small. In July 2023, Bronny suffered cardiac arrest during a USC practice. He was only 18 years old. Suddenly, the question was not whether he would become an NBA player. The question was whether he would be okay. That moment changed the entire story. For months, Bronny's future was uncertain. His health came first, his family waited, doctors evaluated him, fans sent support. And LeBron, the man who had spent years talking about sharing an NBA court with his son, faced the terrifying possibility that the dream might never happen. That is the part many critics forget. Bronny did not just walk into the NBA with a famous last name. He walked into it after surviving something that could have ended everything. His path was interrupted, his college season was affected, his conditioning was affected, his development was affected, and still, he came back. That does not erase the basketball questions. It does not mean every criticism is unfair. But it does add humanity to a conversation that often loses it. Because before Bronny was a draft pick, before he became a meme, before he became the center of the nepotism debate, he was a young man trying to return to normal life after a frightening health crisis. That kind of experience changes a family. It changes priorities. It changes the way a father looks at time. For LeBron, the dream of playing with Bronny was no longer just a sports milestone. It became something deeper. It became proof that his son had made it back. Proof that the family had survived a terrifying chapter. Proof that the court still had room for a story that almost disappeared before it ever began. That is why the first father-son game carried so much emotion. People could argue about the pick, they could argue about the minutes, they could argue about whether Bronny needed more time in the G League. But nobody could deny that seeing him back in uniform meant something. Bronny was not just fighting for minutes, he was fighting his way back to the game. So when people reduce his entire story to nepotism, they miss the deeper truth. Yes, his last name opened doors, but his recovery, his patience, and his willingness to keep showing up belong to him. That is why this story is more complicated than the internet wants it to be, because sometimes the same story can contain privilege and pain, opportunity and pressure, criticism and compassion. And if people only choose one side, they miss the human being standing in the middle. The father-son dream comes true. Then came the moment LeBron had spoken about for years. On the 22nd of October 2024, LeBron and Bronny James shared the court for the Los Angeles Lakers, becoming the first active father and son duo to play together in NBA history. No matter where anyone stands on the debate, that moment was historic. For LeBron, it was more than basketball. He had won championships, broken records, passed legends, built a career that already stood among the greatest in sports history. But sharing an NBA floor with his son touched something different. It was family. It was time recovered. It was a father who had spent years on the road finally working beside his child under the same lights. For Bronny, the moment was more complicated. He was living a dream, but also walking into pressure. Every camera was on him. Every movement was judged. He was not just playing his first NBA minutes. He was carrying the emotional weight of one of the most famous milestones the league had ever seen. That is why the moment felt both beautiful and heavy. Some fans saw history. Others saw favoritism. Some saw a father's love. Others saw a front office bending to a superstar's wishes. And maybe all of those reactions explain why the story refuses to disappear. Because LeBron and Bronny's journey is not just about basketball. It is about legacy, power, family, opportunity, and the uncomfortable question of whether love and fairness can exist in the same decision. But on that court, for those few minutes, something simple cut through all the noise. A father and son stood in the same NBA game. Not in a backyard, not in a training gym, not in a dream. LeBron had spoken into microphones for years. In a real regular season game, wearing the same uniform, under the same spotlight. That image became unforgettable. And it also became a problem for the critics, because the emotional power of the moment was undeniable. Even people who questioned the basketball decision understood the rarity of what they were watching. Sports are built on numbers, contracts, wins, and losses. but they survive because of moments that feel bigger than the scoreboard. This was one of those moments. Still, history does not end the debate. It actually made the debate louder. Every time Bronny stepped on the court after that, fans compared the dream to the reality. Was he ready? Was the team helping him? Was LeBron protecting him too much? Was the league celebrating a milestone before Bronny had built his own foundation? Those questions will not disappear quickly, but the milestone already happened. The James family already placed a chapter in NBA history that no one can erase. The only question now is what Bronny does with the chapter after the cameras move on. That is why a fake baby rumor could not stay small. It connected itself to everything people already felt about the James family. Admiration, suspicion, respect, jealousy, criticism, and fascination. In the end, the father-son dream came true. Now Bronny has to prove that his own dream is just beginning. The cost of living under the James name. The fake rumor proves something important. Bronny James does not need to do anything for the internet to build a story around him. That is the cost of his last name. Most young players get to fail quietly. Bronny does not. Most second-round picks get years to develop before the public decides who they are. Bronny was judged before his first real NBA chapter even began, and that is danger. Because when fame becomes this loud, truth becomes harder to protect. A false photo can become a viral headline, a joke can become a narrative, a rumor can become a weapon. And a young athlete still trying to find his place can become trapped inside a story he did not write. That is what happened here. The baby rumor was false, but the reaction was real. It showed how quickly fans are willing to turn personal lives into entertainment. It showed how easily a family can become content. It showed how little proof people need when the headline is exciting enough. Bronny's challenge now is bigger than basketball. He has to grow while the world watches. He has to improve while critics laugh. He has to respect his father's legacy without disappearing inside it. He has to prove he belongs in a league where many people already decided he does not. That is an unfair burden, but it is also the reality of being Bronny James. And the hardest part is that silence does not always protect him. If Bronny ignores the noise, people create their own explanations. If he answers it, they say he is too sensitive. If LeBron defends him, critics call it control. If LeBron stays quiet, people wonder if the family knows the criticism is true. There is no perfect move. That is what happens when a young player becomes a symbol before he becomes a finished product. Bronny is not only being compared to other second-round picks, he is being compared to the idea of fairness itself. Every fan who has ever watched a talented player miss an opportunity sees Bronny and asks whether someone else deserved that spot. Every fan who values family sees LeBron and understands why a father would want one special season with his son. Both sides believe they are right, but Bronny is the one who has to live inside the argument. And this is why fake stories are not harmless. They add more weight to a player already carrying too much. They invite strangers to discuss private relationships. They turn normal young adult life into public trial. They make it harder for people to separate the athlete from the rumor. Bronny may never escape the James name, but he can still define what it means for him. Not by winning every argument online, not by answering every critic, but by slowly stacking real work, real improvement, and real professionalism until the conversation begins to shift. That will not happen overnight. But if he ever carves out his own identity, it will not be because the noise stopped. It will be because he learned how to play through it. The real lesson behind the rumor. In the end, the Bronny James baby rumor was not true, but the reaction to it revealed something very true about modern sports culture. We live in an era where a fake post can outrun a fact check, where a stranger's photo can become NBA drama, and where one famous last name can turn a private rumor into a national conversation. That is not just a Bronny problem. That is a media problem, a fan problem, and a platform problem. Strategically, the James family has to understand that silence protects privacy, but silence can also leave space for lies to grow. They do not need to respond to every rumor, but they do need a strong circle, trusted communication, and clear boundaries around what deserves attention and what deserves to be ignored. For Bronny, the lesson is even harder. He cannot control the last name he was born with. He cannot control every joke, every headline, or every person who thinks his NBA journey was handed to him. What he can control is the work, the discipline, the patience, the way he develops when the cameras are gone. For LeBron, the lesson is about balance. Protecting family is natural, but allowing Bronny to build his own identity may be the greatest protection of all. Sometimes love means standing in front of your child. Sometimes love means stepping back just enough for the world to see who they really are. And for fans, the lesson is simple. Slow down before you share. Behind every viral rumor is a real person. Behind every meme is a family. Behind every headline is a life that can be damaged by careless attention. There is also a bigger basketball lesson here. Organizations must be careful when emotion and roster building meet. A beautiful story can sell tickets, create headlines, and make history. But eventually the game asks the same question it asks everyone. Can you help the team win? That is where development matters. That is where patience matters. That is where honest evaluation matters. If the Lakers truly believe in Bronny, then the smartest path is not protecting him from every challenge. It is giving him the right challenges. Real minutes where he can learn, real coaching where he can improve, real accountability where he can grow without being treated like a symbol. That is how a young player becomes more than a headline. And for the public, maybe the most human thing we can do is remember that Bronny is still building. He is not LeBron. He does not need to be LeBron. He only needs the chance to become the best version of himself. Bronny's story is not finished. Maybe he becomes a real NBA contributor. Maybe he takes longer than people expect. Maybe his path is messy, but he deserves the chance to write it with his own actions, not through fake rumors and stolen photos. If this story showed us anything, it is that legacy is powerful, but truth still matters. If you respect that message, subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with another NBA fan, and comment 1 if you think Bronny deserves patience, or 2 if you think the criticism is fair.